what are some great basics that you would tell parents out there or anybody, going into this field? This is what I suggest, the main parameters that you guys should work around and try to implement into your teaching.
Consistency is key. Even if it's doing something consistently not the best practice that you're using, it will more often than not work. So what is consistency? It's routines, it's boundaries, it's expectations, it's being reliable.
People choose the path of least resistance more often than not and more often than they should. And that comes threefold as a parent, especially nowadays, especially as technology advanced. It was, how the do I get this kid to calm down, stop bothering me, this and that, whatever. Before it was what? Go outside. Yeah. You'll figure it out. Kill a lizard, pull some straw grass, throw a rock somewhere. Now you can't. So what do? They just hand the electronics off.
Teenager, he's just a few years younger than me. I think he said something to the effect of like, "You're so cute, I can't wait to rape you later."
Whoa, buddy. What's going on, crazy world, and welcome to another episode of the Black Sheep Perspective. Speaking of a crazy world, we got Dave Krasky today. He is a psychologist and has just written this phenomenal book, Raising Future Adults. Now, Dave's been in this industry for 20 years, and I'm going to tell you some of the things that he's done. He specializes in psychoeducational testing, including assessing gifted abilities, learning disabilities, autism, executive dysfunctions, and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, otherwise known as ADHD. Dave also has vast experience running social skill groups for children who need direction, instruction, and specific skills such as basic and advanced conversation, reading nonverbal cues, and social decision-making and problem-solving. David also helps families with behavioral difficulties in the home by coaching parents, which is very important, on behavior modification and modeling appropriate skills. Listen, guys, this was a tough podcast. We had to talk about some tough topics that a lot of parents don't like to listen. Most parents think that they're doing just a good enough job, and then the rest of us, got to deal with the results. And the truth is, we can all be doing a better job. We can all play a bigger role on impacting these youths so that we can have a better, stronger nation. So that's what we did today in this podcast. You want to stay put and not miss a little beat. Now, if you know somebody who might need help raising their kids, or maybe their kids have a little bit of social issues, this is a podcast for them. So make sure that you like, subscribe, and even share it with one of these people, okay? Because everybody needs some help, and we all got to come together to help lead our youth into the right direction, What's our future without the youth? So stay glued. Make sure you pay attention to this and pass on the love, because we got to stick for the youth, okay? Let's get to the podcast. Dave Krasky, welcome to the podcast. It's an honor and a privilege to have you, brother. We're really going to talk about a lot of important things today. You're a youth psychologist with a whole lot more, obviously, that in your education. And we're going to talk about some big topics that's affecting our nation, mainly from autism to ADHD and everything else, ADD. There's so many things, this is your expertise. But speaking of your expertise, let's tell people, a little bit about yourself and your education and how we got to where we're at right now.
Sure. So I am a licensed school psychologist. So meaning my training, my background, my schooling, all has to do with youth, pretty much from birth all the way up to 21, 22 years old. When I was in college, majored in psychology, really loved it, learned right away once I started reading a few books, I could not put them down. So after that decided, all right, I'm going to go to grad school because just having a bachelor's in psychology can't do much. And then in grad school, I found out pretty quickly I like working with the younger population because the whole idea of preventing things from really going awry spoke to me. That whole idea of prevention.
Kind of like catching it before it becomes.
Yeah. That just, something in my brain clicked and held on to it, where the thinking is, oh, you mean you can, if I work with kids at a young age, we can prevent addiction. We can prevent dropout. We can prevent severe mental health disorders, decline, struggles, trauma, whatnot. Wonderful. Let's do that. So
that was never a thought to actually work with the youth the way you started working with them until you.
Yeah.
And what was it that kind of got that going? Was it a certain job? Was it maybe a nephew? Was it something personal, or it just grew onto you like that?
I think growing up, I was always very social. Like I still am. I always joke that the term for myself, I'm aggressively friendly.
Okay.
Like I will make you my fucking friend.
I
don't
love
care,
it. I'm aggressive. We need more aggressively
Right?
friendly people in the
So,
world. That's for sure.
It's funny seeing the shift of so many people become a little bit more introverted.
Right.
Like I've gone the other way.
Yeah.
Like, hey, there's somebody alone that doesn't want to talk to me. I'm going to go talk to him. Like any party, whatever. But
That's what's up. Okay.
I found very early on that I was very people-centric. And I was with the same friend group. And I think this had a lot to do with it. When you're with the same friend group for years, you kind of hit the ceiling of your maturity and development.
Right. Yeah.
So you almost stay like teenagers forever. So I always had that kind of mindset anyway. I was never looking forward to growing up so much. I can't wait till I'm 50 and blah, blah, blah. You know, it was your typical kind of Gen X, can't wait till I'm driving, can't wait to live on my own.
Mm-hmm.
But I always like the idea of if I'm working with the younger population, first I know it like kind of keeps you young. And it is true when they say like smaller people, younger people, smaller problems.
Right.
Where when I was first introduced to psychology and the idea of helping people, the thought of helping people that were, first of all, older than me was a little intimidating. Like, who the fuck am I to like talk to this guy twice my age? Like, what the hell do I know? Like, maybe I went to school, but there's a little bit of that imposter syndrome.
That's a you're not wrong for thinking that, because
Right.
I would imagine that a lot of people have problems. I know people have problems with talking to certain psychologists or therapists when they're much younger.
Yeah.
So, that was a legit reason to be thinking like such.
Yeah. And it was a natural progression for me, I think. Also, I had a lot of family that were in the world of education. I loved school. Like I only because what's school? It's a place where my friends are. It wasn't so much learning the homework. It's I get to hang out with my friends all day. So as I got into grad school and I picked this program that was kind of new, and the idea was, all right, there's this field, it's school psychology. Most people work in the schools. You can work privately, which is what I do. I work like private practice. But the schooling is going to be at night and on the weekends, so you can work. You can work during the day.
Okay.
So I did. I started working in the county here as a teacher assistant, and I was substituting during the day. And then I found a job. They needed someone full-time at this school for kids and teens with severe disabilities, emotional behavioral disabilities.
Okay.
So like they had, this is 20 years ago, 25 years ago, they had padded rooms. They
Wow.
had armed security. You know, a lot of these kids lived in group homes. Some of them were homeless, tough situations.
Brother, I got to ask, because it sounds a little wild, that what the hell made you credible enough for that position? Is it just because you were supposed to, babysit them in some shape or form? Were they expecting you to actually start talking to them and get stuff out of them? Like, how did that happen?
So I think they needed, unfortunately, in the field of education, you see overall a shortage of men. So I think I had that going for me. They like that, oh, it's a guy. They're not used to this. And a lot of these kids, they're from single mother households,
right.
sometimes no parents at all. And they're like, you know what? Even if he's not very good at what he does, having a young guy here will really help.
Of course,
these
right.
students, these
right.
kids. They like that. They like that I was younger. I was 24. I don't even know how old I was. I was young, that I could relate to them on different levels. So they paired me with this other teacher who was like a veteran teacher. She was wonderful. And we were working mostly with the high schoolers. And these kids, some schizophrenia, severe depression, bipolar disorder, personality disorder, drug use and abuse, sexual abuse. I learned more there by far than any classroom.
Wow.
It was, and sometimes.
Like hands-on shit.
Yeah.
Dude.
Like,
hands-on.
right? Like, how do you.
These kids were opening up to you?
Yes.
Yeah. And
So,
that had to be tough, dude, when you heard some of the stories that you heard.
It was humbling, flattering. Like, oh, thank you for sharing.
Right, because they opened up.
Right?
Yeah.
But also learning how to talk to kids and teens in a way that works, to build rapport, build that relationship, giving them the opportunity and the space to feel that they could be open, honest, and whatnot. That's where I really kind of honed that skill and have been now doing that for over 20 years.
You picked it up during that time. And how long was that? How long did you work with those trouble youths once you actually transitioned into that position?
So I was there for about 2.5 years.
It's a long time to be hands-on, 5 days a week dealing with these kids. Wow.
Every day felt like a week because, you know, when things got severe, most of these kids, like people would ask me like, oh my God, what was it like? And blah, blah. They're imagining the worst in their head, where I said, no, most of the time, if you saw these kids at the mall, you'd never know. Mm-hmm. It's when stressors happen, the reactions are really different. So I've had furniture thrown at me, you know, kids tell me I'm going to fucking kill you. I think my first day, it's a fun story just because it shows how green I was. Like my first day or first week, I had to do cafeteria duty. So I had to eat with them or whatever. And one of the kids, you know, teenager, he's just a few years younger than me. I think he said something to the effect of like, you know, you're so fucking cute. I can't wait to fucking rape you later. Or something like that.
Whoa, buddy.
Right?
Whoa.
And
That's a major pause there,
and
buddy.
I'm just like...
He yelled it out in the middle of the cafeteria?
Oh, yeah. And not like jokingly, but like serious, like, yeah.
And this is when you knew he was...
Oh, right. Like the stories I've heard, you know, like horrible trauma and abuse.
But you didn't know, at that point, you didn't know that much about him?
No. And I knew though, like training and background and everything is like, you don't react.
Yeah.
You know, just like in the real world, when someone starts talking shit and you want to de-escalate, you don't react. You don't run up on them. You don't like, you know, puff up your chest or start talking shit back or embarrass them. So you just kind of take it as like, that's not appropriate. And you move on. But it was interesting going from that school situation, and what was really neat, what I found, a lot of the kids there looked at me and the other teacher more or less as these pseudo-parents. So I really also learned and understood how important that is, which I know we'll talk about, a bit of the parenting,
of course,
and having the role models and the structure and the routine and the dependability and reliability of the adults in their life. That in itself was healing.
Sorry to interrupt. So at this point, okay, you're in. I know you said you were there about 2.5 years, just with that specific group. In during that time, were you thinking like, man, I really like, I don't want to put shit in your head, but you tell me, were you thinking, I really like working with these troubled youths, but I want to help, not just watch and maintain them, supervise them. How can I help them not get here?
Yeah.
From what I'm witnessing for the last 2.5 years, how can I help the problem, you know, subdue a little bit before getting here? And that kind of gained your interest to want to go to the next level?
Yeah.
Okay. So
absolutely. While I was there and while I was in grad school, what was really neat for me is the stuff I was learning about, I was getting to see in real life once I'd go to work.
Right.
And then I'd get to go back to school and kind of talk about like, oh, like this is, well, I've seen it, you know, when it comes to development, when a kid is dealing with all this type of trauma during those first 3-5 years of life, yeah, it messes with everything. Their social development, their academic development, their emotional development, like all of it. Like, so you can see it, like, wow, this makes sense. And in my program, what I love about our field specifically, it really pushes that early intervention. The earlier, the better.
Of course, yeah.
You know, you catch them young.
Yes.
Thinking of parents, thinking of anyone in any field, right? Like I've played basketball my whole life. I did a little bit of coaching the other year where I think the most fun I had was with the kids that never played basketball. Because like I can from the start, I don't have to worry about these poor habits that they've developed or things that we have to unlearn. But from the beginning, I can make sure we work on these skills and you practice them the right way and you'll get better.
So how much more schooling did you have to do to get to the degree that you wanted to get to? This is to get the master's?
So, right, it's a 4-year program for what I had to do. So it was, you get a master's along the way, and then you do an extra year of schooling. You get a specialist. So it's a PsyS, which a lot of people don't know about, but and then
it's good to know. It's good to,
right?
you know,
like,
to educate people or whatever. I mean, I wanted to be a psychologist. I told you the short story.
Yeah.
Go around that some other time on your podcast, which we'll also bring up later on.
Sure.
But you know, for people who want to be psychologists, this is good to know, like the shit that they don't know. Like, hey, if you're gonna go this route, first of all, guess what? Sorry, a bachelor's barely does shit.
Right.
You know, I don't want to insult it, but it doesn't do shit.
Yeah.
Master's is now where the money's at and where you start going into it. And if you're gonna go this route, you also have to do a year of, or you might have to do a year of, what is it called again? What is it?
So it's a specialist degree.
Specialist degree. Okay.
So to kind of break down the numbers, getting a master's, it's 60 grad school credits. A specialist is 78. A doctorate is 120. With in our field, though, in order to get licensed, so to work privately, if I want to work on my own, under my own license, I have to be supervised for 3 years by somebody that is already licensed. And I meet with them every week, and they like go over all my stuff and make sure I'm doing what I should be doing, and you submit everything. So it's a process. Like, it's a lot. But the whole point is to make sure that once you're off on your own, you really know what you're doing. But we're also trained to the point, and we'll talk about this a little bit, nobody's like an expert. You can always go to others for help. If you're not sure, you consult, you collaborate, right?
Well,
like that's...
Love to hear that.
Right? Like that's life. Like one of the things I'd like to think the reason I've gotten pretty successful at what I do, it's because I connect with others. I don't have all the answers. I find great people, psychiatrists, other therapists, speech and language, tutors, schools, educational advocates, attorneys, you name it. I find the right people, the people I can trust, people I can refer to, and we build a team.
I mean, at the end of the day, Dave, the human mind is so incredible. What it's capable of doing, how it works or coincides with your brain. Your brain can literally lie to you about something that's physically hindering you. It can lie to you and make you think that it's not. You know, I've gone down the rabbit hole so much. It's just wild what you can do psychologically, especially like placebo effect.
Yeah.
You know, that's a big one right there. Like you're literally not putting anything in your body that should physically alter your state in any way, shape, or form. But because we told you verbatim, now psychologically you talked yourself into thinking that physically, and then it happens.
Yeah.
That's wild.
I think
so. Why the power of psychology to me, I'm so amazed by psychology and how many different ways it can, it stems and what can, cause and affect something. Like it's crazy. I love it.
I think I really fell in love with it when I realized I need new. Like, I'm the type of person, I like new. I can't do the same thing every day. I get very bored quickly with it. Even medicine, like at one point I was maybe thinking pre-med and like, oh, I'll do dermatology. Like you're pretty much doing the same things 90% of the time. And it's pretty predictive and it doesn't change that much. I've never had the same day working with people when you're dealing with thoughts, behaviors, emotions, relationships, dynamics. And I still love it. Like, I'm still hearing stuff after 20 plus years that's new.
That's awesome.
That's different, right? And meeting new people. And it's so complicated. Like brains, I remind kids, because they'll ask me like, well, why do I have to deal with this? And why is this happening? And the parents look at me, I'm like, brains are really complicated.
Yeah.
I don't.
Right.
Right. I don't have like the specific answer.
And you have so much credibility in my opinion because of not just the school, and obviously that's great, but to be with that specific group is a big deal. You said it yourself. You learned more in those 2.5 years than you did, almost education-wise, because it was firsthand right there in the whole heat of the thing. And you saw many different styles and extremes, right? But then on top of that, you have your own kids.
Yeah.
And you have to deal with your own kids, and you're balancing this out of, okay, am I going to apply this with my kids? How is this going to work with my kids? Are they going to rebel against me? Without having to go too crazy into your own private world. But how has that been with your kids? How old are your kids?
So I have teenagers.
Okay.
So
scary already.
Anyone that's listening right away, if they have teenagers, like, oh,
they all just sighed. Yeah.
Right.
Oh shit.
Where I always knew early on, that it's going to be a team. I'm married. Wife is wonderful. She's a special ed teacher. And we both have very similar views on parenting, how important it is, routines, consistency, not being yellers and punishers and threateners, but being the ones that are kind of, we're in charge. We're loving, we're warm, but we're firm. We have boundaries and whatever else. So we joke with other people when we didn't have kids yet, and we were working with kids, we tell them like, well, we're just going to like practice on yours before we have our own. So we're like, we're really good with ours by then. Like, well, that's bullshit. I'm like, no, I don't mean that. I'm like, but we got a lot of practice. So parents will always ask me like, well, you must curse in front of your kids. Like, I didn't curse in front of my kids for the first time until they were like 12 and 15. Like they never heard. And when they heard it, like their jaws dropped because I was trained. Like I worked with kids for so long and knew how to keep that under wraps because I tend to curse a lot. That's just the way like my brain works and my language and whatever, or just being consistent. I got a lot of practice where a lot of parents, they don't. So having teenagers now, I remind myself a lot, like, okay, my daughter does not want to hang out with me anymore. Like that's normal. Mm-hmm. When she was younger, daddy's girl.
Daddy's little girl.
Absolutely. Like that was, she was a preemie baby.
It's a hard thing to accept,
Oh
huh,
my
bro?
God.
I know, dude. I know.
And I have pictures, like she literally could fit on my forearm. And I'm just walking around doing chores like she was attached to me. I'll never forget, she's maybe 11. And I take her to bed every night and like read to her. We lay in bed and talk. One night I'm walking her to bed and she's like, what are you doing? I'm like, no, I'm taking you to bed. She pats me on the shoulder. She's like, that's fine. Good night, Dad. I'm like,
fuck, it's downhill from here.
I walk back. My wife's looking at me. She's like, what is it? I'm like, she kicked me out. What the fuck?
And she was how old?
11.
Yeah, because they now it's like, no, now I'm going to do big girl stuff.
My
And then they
God.
just go crazy with it. Then it's like, dude, get away from me.
But I knew, like, I had to remind myself, I'm like, that's normal.
Right. Okay, cool.
Instead of getting
taking
offended.
it personal,
Right,
letting it affect you a certain way.
We're like, well, that hurts my feelings. Like, she's not meaning to hurt my feelings. Like, I'm sad because now I'm grieving that stage of our life. Like, this is not my little girl. Like, she's growing up. That's normal. So having teenagers now, it's a lot of reminding myself they're getting closer and closer to adulthood. I need to back off more. Mm-hmm. I need to make sure they have these skills and I give them the space to make mistakes safely, to learn, to grow. That's pretty much why I wrote a book. I think about it because I've seen the opposite and what happens later on when it happens.
Speaking of that book, guys, you know, I'm here holding it in my hand. I'll let the camera see it. You guys can see right there. Raising Future Adults. It's been out for almost a year, year and a couple months, which is great. And it's your first book.
First book.
We're going to come back to that because I love where we're at right now. You know, we're talking about parenting, and obviously, you know, you've done diagnoses, you know what's out there and whatnot, but instead of just always talking about what these diagnoses are and how bad, you know, they are, we want to fix the root, right? And I think we're kind of getting hinted towards the root comes a lot from parenting.
Yeah.
A lot from these younger years and how it's handled. Now, I'm no expert. Dave is definitely the expert. Are there people who might know more? Sure, people who go deeper into this, but we're not trying to mislead anybody. This is coming from what his expertise is and just my opinion. People choose the path of least resistance more often than not and more often than they should. And that comes threefold as a parent, especially nowadays, especially as technology advances. Mm-hmm. It was, how the fuck do I get this kid to calm down, stop bothering me, this and that, whatever. Before it was what, Dave? We talked about this when I first met you.
Go out. Whack, right? Go
outside. Go outside.
Or they hit you.
Yeah. Get smack, go outside. Yeah. You'll figure it out. Go fucking kill a lizard, pull some straw grass, throw a rock somewhere, figure it out. You know, now you can't. So what do? They just hand the electronics off.
Yeah.
Or they might have an emotional outburst, whatever it is. So as you and I talked when we first met a week ago, something that we want to talk about, and this is a big topic of it, is the parental part. So most of the people, even though you work with kids, you work a lot with parents. And you're trying to, dare I say, help them learn how to approach their parenting skills a little bit better. That sounds very difficult. I always say, and you know, I don't have no kids. I dodged those bullets. The last thing you want to do is tell a parent how to parent, especially when you don't have no kids. And that's an issue that I've had in the past because these parents, you know, they fall in love with me, my guidance on their kids when it comes to mixed martial arts. They know I become like an uncle, big brother, or whatever. And then eventually they want me to be more involved, and I always take pride in doing it. But in that process, you know, I always tell them, hey, man, I never said anything to you because the last thing you want to do is tell a parent how to parent, you know? So how is it for you dealing with that? That has to be difficult. Give us some details about, you know, the different dynamics of, you know, what you've gone through, other scenarios, you know, from bad to good, you know, and walk us through that a little bit.
Sure. Best case scenario is when somebody asks for help or advice. It means they're open. They're ready to listen. They know, like, I need a little help here. I think, unfortunately, our culture, compared to a lot of others, we're not great at thinking of it as it takes a team. right? Like the whole, it
Right.
takes a village.
Right.
So it's a lot of, as a parent, I have to know what I'm doing. I can't ask for help. I can't rely on others. It's just me. It's individualized. I succeed or fail on my own, where I have to almost shift a lot of parents thinking like, no, like nobody's taught you these skills. Like you don't have to take classes to have a kid. You don't have to get a license to have a kid. It's normal to be like, I'm not sure if I'm doing the right thing. That's okay. Or you're not having the result you want. And what gets even trickier is your style of parenting might not be the best for this kid's style of personality or behavior. So if anything, I always try to wrap them in the fold in the idea of like, we're a team now. We work together. I'm not telling you what to do. You're the expert of your kid, right? I know a lot about behavior and the way that children react to certain things and structure and routine and research and what works and what doesn't. You know your kid and the system and the family and the household and all the other factors and stressors. If we work together, put our heads together, we're going to find what works best. That's a lot of the language I try to use as well, so it doesn't come off accusatory,
Right.
and I'm not met with defensiveness or resistance. It's, you're not bad. It's not that it's wrong, bad, whatever. It's, we're going to find what works better. That approach has worked pretty well, but you're right. To your point, I do think it's harder now because there's more factors that just our brains haven't been able to catch up with.
Sorry for the interruption, guys. But here's your friendly reminder. If you really want to show love and you're really digging this podcast as well as the other ones that I produce, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button, push that like, and why don't you share this with a friend or family member? Appreciate all the support, and let's get back to the podcast. So how often are the parents like hard to work with? You know, where you know, I would imagine that one of the hardest parts about them is the dishonesty. Mm-hmm. Because you don't know just how honest they're being about what their tactics are and what they're doing. And I know I'm going to get a little, backlash for this, but I would say women, because of the nurturing motherly ways, they're going to want to admit less often than a man would. You know, I said like, yeah, I was doing too much baby shit. I was too much goo goo gaga. Yeah, you're right. I didn't fucking, slam the door and say, don't do that. I didn't do, she's just going to tell you, yes, I did. Yes, I have been firm. And that makes it tougher. But in that dynamic, have you gotten it's harder with the mothers versus the fathers or anything of that, or not really?
What's funny is the older kids, if they're in the room with us, they'll call them out.
I love it. Yes.
It's unbelievable. So like the teenagers will be like, that's a fucking lie. Like,
what?
Oh, they'll right there, like, in front, that's not true, blah, blah, blah. And, I have to kind of play middle. And I tell the kids, like, I'm doing what's best for you. I'm not on mom and dad's side. So it really gets them to feel more comfortable. And sometimes they'll use me against their parents. Well, Dave said, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I didn't say you should, like, go to a party till 4 a.m. I said you need to, like, hang out with friends more. So, yes, like, we can work around it. But overall, I think I've been pretty fortunate that it doesn't happen super, super often. I think because by the time they get to me, there's a lot of already built into it, a lot of frustration, a lot of feelings of failure, where, as a coach, professional, as a parent, anything, when something's not going right, we will look at ourselves and be like, well, what did I do wrong?
That's what we should do. That's what
Right?
we're supposed to do. Right.
So once in a while, I will get the parents who, they've done nothing wrong. They're not willing to do anything different. Kid needs to learn blah, 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 blah. Then I have to use different strategies, right? Different techniques, almost thinking like a coach. Like, all right, do I have to be a hard ass? Do I have to come at this almost like, I hate to use the word manipulate, but it's almost a little bit like that. Like, what? So I've used before to kind of give a peek behind the curtain. Like, what? Your kids are so lucky to have you and that they have a dad or a mom that wants to spend time with them. I want to make sure that they're speaking to you the right way and, there's more peace in the home. And you don't deserve someone to speak to you that way. So when that happens, I want you to just walk away from them. Don't give them the time of day. Because then they're learning that, oh, when I start yelling at my mother or do this or use this attitude or whatever, I'm not going to get the attention I want. really what I'm also looking at too is, well, I want you to walk away because you stay there and then you start screaming, yelling, you're taking the phone away, you're saying hurtful stuff sometimes. So really, Mr. and Mrs. Parent, I'm removing you. And they're, the way that I'm phrasing it. And it's partially true is you don't deserve anyone to talk to you that way.
Right.
If your boss is talking to you that way, do you just sit there and take it? No, you leave. You'd be like, I'm not dealing with this. Same thing. If your kid is like talking to you a certain way, and it could be with love, like, I love you, you're not okay right now, and I don't want to listen to this right now because I'm going to like lose my shit. I'm going to dip.
Let me ask you, Dave. So there's so many, the amount of advice that you can give is ridiculous. The podcast is not long enough. There's one book is not enough. There's so many ways for so many different scenarios. So if we can do this, let's try to help people out there watching, especially parents.
Sure.
And especially the younger parents, who are kind of fresh on, with their kid fresh out the oven, 2 years, 3 years, whatever it is. They know what's up and coming. This is a good way of letting you know, hey, catch this now before it becomes something worse. That's exactly what Dave's doing here. And this is, one of the main reasons for the podcast. So what are some, I guess, 10 best pieces of advice that you can give, the main basis of like, hey, and of course we know it varies whether someone's got, ADHD, ADD, the autism is at a higher level versus a lower level, whatever it is. What are some great basics that you would tell parents out there or anybody, going into this field? This is what I suggest, the main parameters that you guys should work around and try to implement into your teachings.
Sure. I think first and foremost, I tell most parents, consistency is key. Consistency, even if it's doing something consistently not the best practice that you're using, it will more often than not work.
Because of the consistency factor.
Because of the consistency factor. So what is consistency? It's routines, it's boundaries, it's expectations, it's being reliable. So if bedtime is 9 p.m., sure, you can be flexible. It's New Year's Eve, it's Christmas, blah, blah, blah. But bedtime is 9 a.m. If you get an hour on electronics a day, you get an hour on electronics a day. That's what it is. You can scream, yell, blah, blah, blah. So being consistent, absolutely. Nowadays, unfortunately, we have to think a lot with the technology. So I tell the parents, because it's moving so fast. It's, in the schools, it's in their social life. You start those boundaries immediately the day they're born. Talk to your spouse, partner about it, or if you're on your own. So whatever those boundaries.
When they can get the technology, how often they can use it, and so on and so forth.
That's it. So if you guys decide it's going to be a weekend-only thing, kids could binge all weekend on whatever screen they want, but during the week, we are non-tech all week.
Okay, so now before we go to the next one, you said consistency, and then we're talking about tech, minimizing the usage of tech. When do you think is an all right age to introduce that? Like, are you one of those, well, listen, even if they're 4 years old, you want to put a quick cartoon on to shut them up, whatever, sure, I think that's all right. Or are you more of like, no, you should wait as long as possible? Like what's your take on that part?
I think the older I get and the more advanced I see the technology, I think it's better to wait longer because it's harder for parents to police it. So it was easier when we were kids because it was a television. Mm-hmm. And then eventually it was a Nintendo or an Atari, but we'd rather play outside, right? We'd rather play with our friends. So the parents didn't see it as, oh my God, this kid's playing the Atari nonstop. Like, it's enough. Like, I got to turn it off or whatever. What's built into the new things nowadays, it's so engaging and nonstop and endless that it's very hard for parents to keep up to know, like, oh my God, like, what? How much is he doing and what is this? Right. And it's interactive. And like, these things are made to just feed on dopamine.
Right.
And little kids, they can't monitor that. They're living off of dopamine. So the longer you can wait, especially with any type of screen that's interactive, yes, wait. But if you want to do things like, oh, we watch, I don't even know, my kids are older now, Bluey, or Paw Patrol, or some of these cartoons, what's nice about those, it's structured, meaning there's a beginning, there's an end, there's usually a plot, there's language involved, there's a moral or a story, you could do it together. Mm-hmm. It's not as encompassing
right.
is putting a 4-year-old on an iPad
Right.
and just letting them go.
So we got consistency in whichever method that it is you choose, and obviously, implementing it, and then we have having some type of restrictions or parameters set for technology use and how often.
Yeah.
And what else? What else we got?
One of the things and one of the reasons I wrote the book too is I always thought of the role really of a parent as being one that's a coach or really kind of like a physical therapist that's slowly weaning off whoever it is that they're working with. So the role of a parent, when you think of it over the course of thousands of years, is we need to raise children so they can take care of themselves,
Right.
be independent. If knock wood, they're healthy enough to do it and don't rely on a lot of assistance. But that's the goal. Like, that's our job. So we have to teach. We have to model. We have to coach. We have to correct. So if we kind of shift our thinking, like, yes, you need to keep your child safe, yes, to a point, but we're teaching them. So it's always teachable. So if you think, again, the world of sports, fighting, music, anything else, like teachable moments, you're teaching. You're constantly teaching. We're always trying to get better. That if we shift I tell the parents, like, if we shift our thinking to, we're teaching, they're still learning. There's also then less judgment that the parent has on themselves, because they think of it with this more growth mindset of idea of, oh, they're still learning. They're still working on it. So you have, you're consistent. We have some good boundaries when it comes to technology. We're trying to teach them these skills. We're not doing for them. We're modeling. We're showing them. When you're, nowadays, and you and I are about the same age, a lot of parents bring up the topic of my kid's self-esteem.
Right.
Right. I want my kid to be happy. I just want them to be happy. And I have to remind them, like, well, happiness is a feeling, it comes and goes. Sadness, anger, excitement, they can't be happy all the time. You want them to be emotionally capable of dealing with these different feelings. You want them to be independent enough to do these things and communicate what they need and whatnot. So again, it goes back to that role of, you can help teach your kids how to cope with these feelings, how to deal with these situations that come up with it. And it doesn't have to be, let's swoop in and solve it.
Right.
They're going to be upset. That's okay.
How do you tell a parent the difference? How do you try to teach them? What is your method of teaching them the difference of micro parenting, micromanaging, hovering, what you called hover parenting?
Yeah, like that helicopter parenting.
Helicopter parenting, where they're always hovering over their kid. Or the overly strict one, you're like, whoa, this person's a military, he's ex-military. I would imagine, this and that. How do you tell them, don't be like that, or you need to be like that, because again, they're not going to admit it to you, right? So how do you get that out of them?
It's funny. Some will right off the back. I've had countless parents say right away, like, I'm that helicopter parent.
Okay.
And a lot of times, like, they realize it's wrong. They realize, like, that's their own shit. So it's funny, we live in South Florida, and I live in a pretty decent area. I work in a pretty decent area. And the stuff that they worry about, I try to demystify
What, like first world
it.
problems, you mean?
Right. Like, a lot of parents worried about kidnappings.
Mm-hmm.
And I show them the data. I'm like, kidnappings are, like, really down. And the majority of kidnappings are done by people that the kid knows, family members, the ex-spouse trying to get whoever, like, and you can teach your kid how to not get kidnapped. So I try to make it very practical, very real life. You want to teach your kid how to be safe. So you can let them go to the mall and they can hang out with their friends and do whatever. And if they get in a little bit of trouble and this, that, whatever, like, yeah, there should be consequences. But I always think long-term with them, that, all right, if you're hovering, when are you going to start backing up? 12? College? Marriage? Mm-hmm. It really gets them to kind of think of it a little differently. And I try to start small. So if I have a really strict parent or helicopter parent, whatever, that doesn't let their kid do anything on their own or go anywhere, I say, you know what? We're going to take baby steps. So you're not going to let your 12-year-old bike 3 miles down the road to wherever tomorrow. Like, you're not there yet. But you can let them walk to their friend's house, which is 3 houses down. Let's start there. And if it makes you feel better, you can even stand outside and watch the first few times to make sure he knows what he's doing. He's not running in the middle of the street if you're worried about that or whatever else. And you could see it. It gives you a little peace of mind. And that in the long term, when you think about, circling back to the kid, isn't that going to make him feel better about himself? That he's independent and he's successful and he's capable. Because the message of me doing for you all the time is you can't.
Yeah, because you need me. You need me to be here for you to do this.
Yeah.
And that's why they need to have that little separation.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, it makes total sense. Growing up in our days, my mom would take the leash off and it's like, make it home before the sundown, and that's it. We're out and about, doing
You
our
had a
thing.
leash. I never even had a leash.
Yeah, you're right about that.
Right?
Three boys. No.
I would disappear, all weekend. I was just biking. I'm going to sleep at this person's house. And then the next night I bike to the next friend's house and sleep there. And, that maybe I was under-parented a little. Maybe they weren't as aware. But I think they also knew me. And they knew, we knew you were, bright enough. You weren't going to do anything too boneheaded. And you knew how to be safe. And you were social and whatever. And we trusted you. We lived in a nice city, or nice enough. So it's a pendulum, right?
Right, of course.
You don't want to swing too much here.
Right.
You don't want to swing too much there of all right, you're 10, do whatever you want. I don't care. Stay up until whenever you want. Go bike around the middle of the streets at 3 a.m. I don't care. Eat what you want. Be on whatever screens you want. Watch whatever you want. I don't care. That's not enough.
Right.
So we try to find something with the goal and purpose of, again, for them to develop the skills necessary to be able to survive and hopefully thrive on their own.
What are the most common problems that diagnosis that you get in your field? Obviously, there's a lot out there, and for people like myself, and I'm not a conspirator, but I've gone down many rabbit holes, and and I had this talk with Lisette, who a friend of ours. How much information is out there or is not about what could be causing autism to such a high, level from the vaccinations. And again, guys, I'm no expert, so this is for entertainment purposes only. YouTube, don't try to take this down. But from, people accusing vaccinations, the water, the metals in our water, obviously the bullshit that we've been eating in our food for so long with all these dyes, stuff that RFK is trying to, get off the shelves. What is the most common diagnosis that you see in your field that you work with the most?
Sure. So statistically, and the reason why a lot of numbers change is they change the definition of things.
Oh, okay.
Right? So autism years ago, before we were even around, you had to be severely disabled to be considered autistic. Nonverbal, even having some behaviors of self-injury, a lot of these repetitive, stimulating behaviors, flapping, hitting, very severe. And it kept expanding because they found these kids. We went to school with them. A lot of kids are they're just kind of quirky, or they're really different, or they're socially a little awkward. And found out those kids have a form of autism they called Asperger's at the time.
Right.
So they just expanded the definition and kind of kept everyone under the tent. And then, they went back, they got rid of Asperger's. It's still autistic, but I remind a lot of the people I work with, I see a lot of it. And again, they get to me. They're only getting to me if there's something going on. It's unfortunate that my field is not looked at as almost a medical doctor of everyone should have a checkup at one point. I think every kid should meet with a therapist once a year just for a check-in. How's everything going? How you dealing with things? You could catch stuff. Just if you go, my age now, they do freaking EKGs every time I walk in.
Why haven't they done that? What is so wrong about doing that? I don't see nothing wrong with doing that, and especially after a certain year to make that some type of, I don't know. I guess you can't make it mandatory, but it'd be something that you guys can try to influence on parents that we think once a year kids should do that.
I think the main two barriers, number one, it's still a little taboo. It's still, I don't want to go to a therapist. I still have kids say I'm not crazy. I don't need a therapist. I'm oh, you guys still think that? In 2026? Shit, I know schools 40% of their kids have their own therapist. I got 12-year-olds that have a therapist on speed dial. That, along with money, it's not covered by insurance. Or if it's not, you need a reason to see a therapist. And a lot of times, unfortunately, the third factor, it's prioritizing, where it's, well, we're only going to go if something's wrong. You know, you have to kind of shift the idea of like, no, you can catch things early on. So back to your point and question of like, well, what am I seeing a lot of? So there's a good amount of people like with autism that end up with me, a lot of learning disabilities, ADHD, and what I've seen really boom after COVID is this social anxiety that I've never seen. The amount of times kids use the terms with me, cringy, awkward, like everything is cringy. I'm like, if everything is cringy to you, like you're going to avoid everything. Like you need to go out, you need to go to parties, you need to date, you need to do all this. So COVID definitely like kind of showed you the wound. And now this over-reliance on the overscheduled kids along with nonstop technology or unchecked technology, a lot of it, to your point, when you think of the parenting, I think like, you know, the nature versus nurture, the nurture part of it, that parenting, the environmental factors of these kids are out of practice. If I haven't been around a group of kids in 2 years and then you throw me into a school with 3,000 kids, of course I'm going to be anxious. Like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. Like, I don't know who to talk to. Like, right. So I get a lot of these high school, college age, post-college kids. Some have never asked someone out in person. Like, just, hey, you want to go out? Like, you're kind of cute. Like, you want to, like, they've never flirted. They don't understand the social nuances that we learned through exposure and trial and error. How many times have you been rejected? Like, countless, like, you know.
But how do you know, I'm with you on this, and I'm thinking, fuck, what do you tell the parent that has that, let's say the person is 16, 17, maybe 18, and, you know, hey, Mary, you know, what's up with your son? You know, I never seen him with a girlfriend or anything, you know, is he you know? No, he loves girls. He's just, you know, I just let him do his thing. Yeah. You know, he's very introverted, you know, but he's a good kid. He gets good grades, you know, so I just leave him alone. I let him do his thing. Obviously, you're going to think, well, that's not the right thing. You know, you want to try to influence that kid to do something else, because if you don't, nowadays, you're dealing with older kids. Now you're dealing with what, from 15 to 20?
Yeah, and to the late 20s.
And you're seeing how much it affects them in their late years now.
And what happens, unfortunately, I've just worked with a few this week, they start to really feel bad about themselves. I've had a few 20-something-year-olds in the last week, you know, they've never kissed a girl yet. They've never had a relationship, and they're starting to realize, like, oh, shit, like, I want this stuff. I feel like I missed the boat. And now I'm learning, but all these other 20-something-year-olds, they've done all this for 5, 6, 7 years. I'm behind. This is very intimidating, so I'm going to avoid it instead of just jumping in and just being awkward and like, it's going to suck. Like, your first 10 to 20 dates are going to be awkward. You have to be willing to deal with it. And you can practice, you know, like almost like practice dates, like anything else. You know, you're in the fight world. Like, you're going to have some of those fights that might not count against your record, like sparring sessions or whatever else.
Right.
Just to get used to it. Same thing here. Like, you need to get used to, you know, the awkward silence and knowing what to say. Like, you're out of practice. So one of the things I always recommend to parents, again, getting back to kind of like, what are those things that you really push on? You know, consistency, routines, boundaries when it comes to the technology and rules, whatever, but also when it comes to their social world. So I really believe one of these things I'm believing more and more, the more I see the way humanity is kind of going and this generation is going, of treating social skills and relationships like a commodity. So you can be great at math. That's a commodity. You can have a lot of wealth. That's a commodity. If you're really good socially and you can connect with people and speak to people and listen well and build relationships, that's rarer now.
Yeah, that's
than
right.
Probably most generations before. And if you're good at it, you're going to stick out.
And that's man, when you put it like that, it's just like, think about it. You want your kid to be good at math. Yeah. You want your kid to be educated. You want them to be a doctor. You want them to, Papo, how about you make them really good at socializing?
Right.
And then everything else will fall in place.
I remind the
It's
parents
crazy when you
often-
think about it like that.
Well, think about school, right? The last 50, 100, 150 years, they got very good. We know how to teach reading. Even if you have a learning disability, we know how to teach reading. We know how to teach math. We can teach all these things. Teaching social skills, that's tough. That's a different language. And the only way to really learn it is to do it. It's not watching TV shows of people socializing. It's not reading comics of whatever. You have to do it. Just like I think of a sport. You could watch football all day long. Until you're playing it, you're not getting better. So one of the things I always tell parents, like as early as possible, have them with other kids. Unstructured if possible as they get older. Like when they're babies, sure, you need to be around so nobody, falls. And as they get a little older, right, you want to watch on the playground alone. No one just beats the shit out of each other or runs away, God forbid. But they need to hang out with other kids. And it's okay if, we got into a fight, blah, blah, blah. That's okay. How many times have you fought with friends growing up?
Of course, man.
Right?
Plenty
You
of
beat the
times.
shit out of each other, yell at each other, then you dap each other up, or you give each other a hug, and then you're friends again. That's normal.
And it helps you become a person, a real person. You're dealing with shit. You whether you lost the fight or not, or you got in an argument, you got emotional.
Yep.
You have to acquire those skills, or it'll fucking come and haunt you when it pops up out of nowhere.
I tell a lot of the teens, young adults I work with, their biggest obstacle for them in their life is getting into college. I mean, they made this in the last, again, generationally, they've really pushed that the last 50 years. And a lot of these schools, this is the end all be all for them. And I tell them, like, great, like you'll get into a college. Our job's to make sure you can stay there, not get kicked. You could build relationships and eventually get a job. Do you know how to get a job? Well, yeah, if I get good grades in college. Nope, that's bullshit. Like the grades help. It'll get you interviews, whatever. If you don't interview well, if you don't have connections, if you don't come across a certain way, nobody's hiring you. I have these interns that come to me in the summer from one of the local high schools near me. And that's one of the things I push a lot is nobody's going to really care at the end of the day how you got the job. Whether it's I knew somebody, I graduated from here, whatever. You need to be able to keep it. And that's where their skills come in.
Sorry for the interruption, ladies and gentlemen. But if you're really liking this podcast, as well as the others prior to it, please do not forget to hit that subscribe button, push that like, and go ahead and share this with some friends and family. Thank you for all the support, and let's get back to the podcast. I always feel like once you've been through something, that at that point, that gives you the credibility to speak more of that something, And I mentioned this earlier in the podcast, your credibility is great for so many different reasons because of the route that you took, Your education obviously is number one, but you kind of took this route that chronologically took you through from the younger youths to some in the middle old teenagers and whatnot, and now even into their adult life. And in that process, you ended up, spending those 2.5 years with those troubled youths, which gave you more than anybody else normally gets to, witness. And you got close to these kids. You got to hear their stories, and you see how crazy it is. And then you also have your own kids that you've dealt with, you're dealing with, and so on and so forth. So all this is like, no one come at you and be like, what the fuck does he know? Oh, no, I've been there, did that, came around more, and so on and so forth. And you also, from what we spoke about a while back, you've also had your own panic disorder issue of some sort. And I don't want to say it the wrong way, if it was actually a disorder, if it was just a panic attack. Apparently it was a little bit more. Can you take us down what happened there and when you had that panic attack?
So I didn't realize what they were as a kid. I would again, we're going to the 80s, so you go to your parents with anything like, you're fine. It feels like I'm going to throw up. Oh, you probably ate something bad. Where this was happening often. I would wake up in a panic, and I felt like I was going to pass out, or I wasn't real. Like, oh my God, like I feel like I'm not even in my own body anymore. This doesn't feel real. The nausea, the hyperventilating, the kind of like tunnel vision that happens with like very heightened panic. So kept dealing with that over time and managed it. Still, like, it didn't ruin my life. It didn't fuck up things too much. But then you fast forward a little bit. Now I'm married. Now I'm starting to have kids. Now I'm working on my own. So when you work on your own, it's not a salary anymore. Like, what you make is what you make. So then I need to work more. I need to do more. I need to do more. I was taking some medicine that was helping, but was first described as, oh, it's just general anxiety. You know, here's like some med and you'll do a little therapy. I tried weaning off the meds on my own because I'm like, all right, do I really need this? Is this doing much? I didn't change my lifestyle though. So then it's about 9 years ago, almost to the day, I completely like had this almost psychotic break where I had to leave work. I ended up at home. I met with a psychiatrist. He gave me a few like antipsychotics. Like I didn't sleep I slept for a few days.
Gee.
He had me come back in the office. Like, we're going to put you on this medicine. And this is why I'm very wary about medicine. And like, it's all trial and error. Like there's no exact, oh, you have a headache, take a Tylenol, it works. Like, no, when it comes to these things, you have to really know like all the possible side effects and if it's right for you. So the medicine I was on made things worse. So over the course of 3 months, I lost about 35 pounds.
Wow.
I didn't sleep. Like I slept maybe 2 hours a night. So I could barely work. I started then getting very depressive episodes, suicidal episodes where I just didn't want to live, where I luckily have a lot of good people around me that I kind of like was reaching out to. And we decided, like, you know what? The only way to really find what works for you, and if the medicine you're on is like fucking things up and making things worse, and if you need a different one, you need to be in a hospital setting. So I agreed to voluntarily put myself into a psychiatric care unit for about a week so they can try different meds with me and monitor me. Meds for my mood and anxiety, meds for sleep. And I vividly remember like that first day. It's very interesting because I'm thinking like, but I'm a fucking psychologist. Like I know how to deal with this shit and blah,
Right,
blah, blah, blah.
right.
Like, no, you don't. Like first day I'm, we're in group or because you're with other people on this floor and it's lockdown. Like, you're in sandals. You can't have drawstring because you might hurt yourself.
Yeah.
Like you're wearing sweatpants and a hoodie and there's room checks every 15 minutes and that's the way it is. And we're all in a group and we're just kind of sitting at the table and I look around and we're all wearing the same ID bracelets from the hospital. And like, that was one of those moments like, oh shit. Like, I'm a fucking patient. Like I'm on this side of the table now.
Wow.
I'm not on that side of the table.
Surreal as fuck.
And very humbling. Like you can't outthink this. There's no intellectualizing yourself through this. Like you are a fucking patient. You need help. It's okay. You don't have to do it all. Like accept the help. You're here for whatever. The people I met, it was amazing. I befriended one guy about the same age who was homeless and a crack addict, but also had autism. And I became really close with him. And then a girl who was a drug addict and abuse victim who the three of us were almost like a little sibling group where it was unbelievable like that we just connected and bonded. And just, talking to people and hearing their stories and going to therapy. And they kind of say like...
How long were you in there for?
About a week or 8 days. And then once they figured out like that medicine you're taking, yeah, you shouldn't be on that anymore. We're going to give you this instead. And then we're going to give you this thing to help you sleep. And I remember vividly the first night I slept, it was like day 7 or 8. I slept through the night. That was the first time in like 3 months. And I woke up after like 10 hours and like... It felt like somebody turned the lights back on and like, oh my God, I feel like me. This is my baseline. And I remember I called my wife. She was actually at her brother's wedding and it was that morning, the morning of his wedding. And I called her and like, I slept through the night. Like, I feel like this is me. This is like how I'm supposed to feel. And like, she like lost it, broke down. And I was like, ready, but had to realize you can't just jump back into what you were doing before. That's what led you here. It's very common and with anyone who struggled with anything, you look at the patterns, right? What led you to this? You can't go back to this. That didn't work. So getting to, how it kind of comes full circle, it gave me a lot more insight into the idea of any of us at any point can become the patient.
That's right.
Any of us at any point might be the one that needs help. Now, on the flip side, we also might be the one that's helping others. which is fine. But in order for us to get to that place, we need to take care of ourselves. We need to take care of each other. So one of the things, I tell the kids I work with, not just, oh, I'm a parent and I have kids and I've been doing this a while and blah, blah, blah. Like, I've dealt with some of this. It's hard. And it's never a neat fix. I joke with some of my friends who are doctors, it's easy for them, like cancer, chemo, and I'm going to do surgery. Done. That's simple. This, like if you have a 20-something-year-old dealing with severe depression and now maybe addiction, it's not a simple fix. Which is why I love the idea again of, let's front load. Let's make sure we give these kids all the skills and strategies they need. We give them the support and the structure they need to deal with whatever comes their way. So God forbid if something like this does happen, they're equipped to deal with it. So I almost think, it's kind of like getting into the psychotherapy, Freudian, whatever psychology of it. Like I kind of look at it as I'm hoping these kids get the skills I never got so they don't end up in a psychiatric care unit or they don't end up worse, homeless, addicted to something, suicidal ideation, and very bad relationships and situations.
You had earlier, you were talking about many different ways to try to catch it before it gets, bad, from the consistency to the dealing with youth, obviously, giving them parameters for the electronics and things of that nature. I know that you and I spoke about this one off camera last week, but you haven't mentioned it today. How important is it to introduce physical exercise to these kids or even these adults? And what kind of impact does that have on them psychologically?
So I created my own little, I don't know if you remember in the psychology classes at Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's like a triangle. And it shows like, you need your basic needs met first before the next ones and the next ones and so on. So if a kid doesn't feel safe, you can't teach him anything. He's just surviving. So you have to make sure that first. I've created kind of like my own little thing with the kids where I say to them, the first thing before we do anything, it's how well do you sleep? How well do you eat? Do you exercise and take care of your body? And do you socialize? If one of those isn't taken care of, we can't go further. So I say this is a non-negotiable. Again, getting back to like your routines, your boundaries. You can make it very simple. Like, I don't care what it is. You don't like sports. You need to take care of your body. You only get one. And that's another, like, I love the idea of you can prevent a lot of bad things later on if you take care of your body, not just physically. I can't tell you how many kids I've worked with that found part of their therapy was going to the gym. Or going, right?
Yeah.
Or going to a jiu-jitsu class where they're like, yeah, I fucking grapple. And then after we're just shooting the shit and like, that was my therapy. I'm like, yes, you don't like that. You don't have to go to the weekly therapy the way that you think it is. Like, those are your needs. So from an early age, I try to really instill on the parents, that should be just part of their functioning. It shouldn't even be a question. And I don't care, like, even if, they're not very coordinated, like, doesn't matter. Throw him in a pool. He doesn't like sports. Let him play tag. He can learn skateboarding, jump parks, whatever. It doesn't matter. That physical activity piece, especially now because it's not happening as much, it's getting hijacked by, all the screens and all the homework and assignments, whatever. It's going to be on a parent level because the government, politics, policy, and whatnot have not created an environment that fosters it. So it falls on us. It's supposed to be mandatory in the schools that they have recess. I have kids tell me every week that they miss recess because, we weren't good. We had too much work to do. It was bad weather. The teacher didn't want to go outside. And for some, that's the only activity they get.
So now, even with that said, thinking into the future, you're seeing that the numbers are higher, right? Am I making this up or not? So the numbers are higher. And when I say the numbers, what are we talking about here? Just autism or just...
So if we think umbrella of like, mental health disorders.
Mental health disorders, okay.
They say teenagers right now, if you kind of polled all the high schoolers in the country, high end, you're looking at up to 40%.
Jeez.
During their high school years are going to be dealing with something severe enough to be called like, oh, you have a disorder. Like, we could diagnose this. This is severe enough. This is a disorder.
So with that said, do you think that this is one of the big reasons that the what's it called, making babies is on an all-time low? I mean, obviously the social, people aren't socializing enough as they used to, and so on and so forth. But I would also imagine it's, these skills are not there.
Yep.
Like you mentioned the kid who hadn't even gone on a date yet at 21.
I think of it almost like a perfect storm of all the wrong things that can happen at once, right? Like, you have the economic side of it where it's just more expensive. I work with a couple 20-something-year-olds. They're nowhere near buying a house. They can't think of marriage and a kid or anything. Like, they don't have money for that. I think the technology is, the algorithms are built to kind of steer more negative. And I think it paints the picture of a world that's very bleak and almost dystopian. And a lot of people are like, I'm not fucking bringing a kid into that. Like, fuck that.
As well, right.
Right? That, along the lines of, like you said, nobody's really dating as much and screwing around and having sex as much. There's a famous, I think he's a businessman, but he also teaches at one of the colleges up north, Scott Galloway. Mm-hmm. He's all over the internet now. He's wonderful. If anyone wants to check him out, like his ideas. One of his lines, he was on Bill Maher recently, and another guy I listened to is, instead of watching porn, these guys need to go out and make their own bad porn. Like, yeah. Like, yes.
That's great.
Put the fucking porn away and go try to hook up. Like, we've been doing that for like 50,000 years. That's normal. Like, it's okay. Like, think of your high school days. What was a typical weekend? Let's see if we can like drink, even though we shouldn't be. Let's do something stupid, and let's see if we can get with some girls. That was it.
That was it.
That was it.
Yeah.
So now when I hear like kids, the majority don't say that. I hear a teenager say it. I'm like, oh, you're like a throwback. This is great. And they say like, yeah, this isn't as common.
Speaking of common, what's something common that kids, I guess, trust in you, because you have a like a privacy thing where you don't, kind of like a doctor has with his patient, right? Yeah, you don't have to tell the parents everything they tell you?
So when they're under 18...
It's under your discretion.
Right. When they're under 18, because of HIPAA, like the laws and rules, tell them, like, your parents have a right to the notes and all this other stuff. If I don't think they need to hear this or you want to keep it private and I agree with you, yeah, it's under my discretion, like you said. If I think they need to hear it and you don't want them to, but legally I have to, we have options. I could tell them. If you don't, we can do it together. Like, whatever works for you. Once they're over 18, because I've worked with kids like starting at, younger teenage years. And once they're over 18, I tell them, like, you have to sign a release if your parents want to talk to me. Like, I can't tell them jack shit unless you want to hurt yourself or someone else. And a lot of the kids, even the younger ones, like, they like the idea of, wow, this is not like this hierarchy of here's another adult just in charge of me telling me what to do. And I always tell them, like, we're partners, man. Like, we work together. I don't care if you're 10. I don't care if you're 30. I'm sitting at the table with you. I'm not above you. I'm speaking to you with respect. The only difference is because you're 10, I don't curse. Like, that's it. Everything else is the same. This is how I talk. That works really well.
That's where I get fired.
Yeah.
I'm still cursing. I tell them, hey, these ain't bad words. These are adult words. And you're not allowed to use them the same way you're not allowed to touch alcohol or anything else. You're not allowed to use them. You'll figure it out when you get there. But I definitely would tone it down to the utmost degree. Yeah. I just cannot guarantee you. Something's going to slip out. Question. So when do you tell the parents, or better yet, have you been put in a situation where the kids told you something that was very like, oh, fuck.
Yeah.
What do I, like, I don't know, I guess like maybe, molestation, and they didn't want to tell you. Eventually they do, and then now you have to take it to the next level. Like, and did you have to take it to the next level when that happens? Because I imagine, these kids, some of the social, the issues is because they told them, don't you ever tell anybody that we did this, and then they hold back as long as they can, and then bloop. How do you handle that? How often does that happen?
Fortunately for me, when it comes to the abuse, it hasn't. Which is amazing for how long I've been doing this. What gets pretty hairy sometimes in a lot of the high conflict relationships, divorce, parents that are just like at each other, it gets pretty complicated when it comes to, they call it triangulation. Like, don't tell dad this, or don't tell mom this, or I told him this. And then the kid will tell me something, and then it's, well, don't tell mom because of this, and then it'll cause this in the divorce, and then I have to talk to lawyers. It gets complicated. What I've had to deal, so that's kind of tough, and playing it away of, I always fall back on, well, what's best for this kid? Mm-hmm. What do I need to do what's best for the kid? That's kind of my guiding principle that helps a lot. But I definitely have had to discuss with parents about their child's maybe self-harm, if they're cutting or doing things to hurt themselves, or if they're doing anything that's typical but they feel is private, like anything with masturbation, dating, hooking up, on the illegal side, like if they've tried vaping, this, that, whatever. I really try to press the idea of, we need to communicate openly. I need to make sure parents can listen and not just nag and lecture and punish.
Right.
Because the initial instinct of the adult is to be like, I'm nipping this in the butt, like, fuck this isn't happening anymore. And that just makes the kid want to share less. So it all falls back on, I need this situation and this relationship to be one that it's open, we can communicate, we can support each other, nothing in isolation, nothing hidden. All these things, one of the guys I was interviewing myself, like on my podcast last week, he had a great line. He's like, addiction loves silence. You can put that to almost any other term or any other disorder, shame, guilt, loneliness, obviously, anxiety, depression, all of those things love being alone. They foster, they feed off of it. So you want to do the opposite. No, you share. That's when you're supposed to. So you like saying, oh, we don't talk about this. But no. That's when you have to talk about it. I've had a really tough week, and I'm starting to have these thoughts again about like not wanting to live and like this, I don't know what to do. I want more kids to be able to say that and not be afraid, because I have kids still ask me, like, if I say that, are you going to get me locked up?
Right. Yeah.
Like they really think that.
They really want to talk about it, but they don't want to face repercussions for
for
opening up. Yeah,
and
it makes
I say,
sense.
like, this is a law. It's again, if you have a plan, if I really feel like you need to be hospitalized, like if you're going to go home and hurt yourself, I'll make sure that whatever happens, it's the best case scenario. I'm not going to throw you in some godforsaken place where you're going to be like medicated and given shock therapy, because like they still think that shit.
Of course.
Right? Like they're watching all this and learning on TikTok or God knows what else and hearing like these horror stories. But again, I try to get to the point where this should not be taboo. It's ingrained
the communication
in us.
part, like it's crazy, right? They
Even talking about just two guys, like how often does a 15-year-old talk to his other 15-year-old buddy and be like, yeah, I've had a really fucking stressful week, man. Like nothing's making me happy anymore. And like, I don't know what to do. I'm just really struggling. Doesn't really happen much still.
Men don't do that enough neither, you know? And well, on that note, let's talk about your podcast.
Sure.
You decided, I was just thinking deep about my friends, and I'm like, man, these motherfuckers don't ever, like I had to pull some information out of a friend of mine like a month and a half ago where I'm like, hey man, I felt like on the chat, you were doing you were saying X, Y, and Z, and the chat played it off like you're just, probably acting like a little pussy. But me, I felt like deep down inside you were reaching out. Now that I'm here with you one-on-one, bro, is everything okay? Because you seem extremely fucking stressed over work. And he damn near went into tears.
Yeah.
He was overly stressed. He was reaching out. He was trying to get advice. And instead, he did get fucking arrows shot at him because, the fellas are the fellas. It's the group chat, the guys' group chat.
Yep.
And, it made me think that, unfortunately, this is why men don't open up enough when they try to reach out, because of the ridicule that they get. And well, I guess on that note, look at how far you've come. So you started working with the youth. The youth is what got you into the youth psychology, and you increasingly went, through the chronological age, and now you're actually trying to work with men, or at least get the message out there for men's health with this podcast.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
So it started about 3 months ago. A buddy and I, one of my best friends, like growing up, we've been, friends for over 30 years. he was doing his own thing, like podcasting a little bit. And I always had this idea of doing something in the podcast world that talks about things very practically and uses a lot of the research, a lot of the data, but can apply it real life, right? Because that's, I think, been a gap for years. Like, well, the research shows this and theoretical and blah, 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 blah. Yeah, but this is fucking real life. Like, this is the real deal. Like, I'm a 47-year-old dude. I live here. This is my lifestyle. I'm not going to do this thing. Like, maybe the research shows, but that doesn't fit for me. So, and he's open about, we've shared on the podcast, it's called In the Garage with Dave and Andres. He's an Army vet. Also, he's been in treatment for alcohol. Like, I do what I do. So I've like also been in treatment for my mental health stuff. And I work in the field of psychology. And the reason we both wanted to start it is we know the numbers. You know, he also has a master's in sociology, and we see the data. So the data for men specifically, like 18 to 35, rates of like depression, anxiety, anger, loneliness, isolation, all of it. It's scary.
Very.
Right?
Very.
Suicide rates, alcoholism, addiction, incarceration, like all 3, 4, 5, 6 times greater than women.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, even growing up, I remember vividly always being same thing, like, oh, you're a fucking pussy, man up, blah, blah, blah. So it's kind of ingrained in us,
right?
Where it was more acceptable for the girl to be like, wow, I'm really like stressed today. I'm really anxious. Like, oh, well, sure. You're a girl. We're like, well, yeah, guys have fucking feelings.
True.
You know, if anything, they have found that guys are maybe a little bit more affected by those feelings than the girls. So socially, for example, they've kind of found, and they've seen it. Like, one of the things we talk a lot about is like male loneliness, where long gone are the days of poker night, bowling leagues, right? The guys' night. I don't even remember what, like Moose Lodge.
It's at a minimum. Yeah. It's
right.
at a
like
minimum
Masons, Elk Lodge, the Shriners, like all these different things.
Yeah.
Where it's very isolated now. And they've realized that too. Like, wow, like, I think guys need social lives and to socialize more than the girls do. Holy shit. So that was one of the things that kind of prompted us, like, well, let's create this space where we talk about different topics very openly and honestly. We talk a little bit about, okay, these are the numbers, and we know what's led us here, right? So it's almost like, well, wow, all these people have lung cancer. What do they have in common? Well, they've all been smoking cigarettes. Oh, well, let's reverse that. All these guys are dealing with A, B, C, D, and E. Well, how do we kind of fix that or make things better? So we talk a lot about topics like, you know, that social aspect. You asking before, you know, how important is the physical aspect of like a kid's life? Like, sure, same with the social.
Right.
Like, every day you should be socializing, connecting at some point. You should be physically active. You should be doing something you're passionate about or like, or give you purpose or meaning. You should do something with self-care. So we really make sure to hit those things very real life. We start with like, if you're here, just get here. You're not going to get here if you're here. And we've started interviewing people and just have a great open discussion about topics related to men's mental health.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you find yourself liking this podcast, please don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button, and why not share this with a friend or family member? We appreciate all the support. Let's get back to the podcast. Dave, well, coming around full circle, brother, like, again, I know I've mentioned this a couple times, you know, you really have gone through this path that has brought you all the way to trying to help now the adult version of what you were starting with on the youth version. In your book, is that primarily where you're going with this, or is the book more so just for the parents and how to raise their kids?
So it's really geared towards parents. There it is. Thank you. I like to think of it as very practical strategies for specific areas. So like, you have behavior, you know, how kids act and how they behave, and routines and how to use reinforcement, consequences, all that the right way. You have emotions, right? That's different from behavior. Like, kids feel different ways. We could teach them how to cope with it when they're very severe, which ones are more common, which ones are not as common. And then it comes to, okay, like, now they have to learn and grow. And the whole book kind of frames it in a way of, well, we're leading towards this path of the child being able to survive and, like I said, hopefully thrive on their own, that level of independence. and very practical. Every chapter is kind of, this is what this is on. Here's some of the big idea talking points. Here's 4 specific things that you can do right now. Like start this and let's summarize. So you can pick and choose whatever you want to kind of topics in there that work for you from whatever time you're with your kids.
Are you trying to become more of a book writer as you move on? Is this something that you've kind of fancy now? Did you had your first one? You kind of got the feet wet?
It's like a tattoo.
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
Right when you get one, you're like, oh. So I never thought I would write. I'd actually, once I got out of the hospital, when I was hospitalized like 9 years ago, one of the things I decided to do, I'm like, I'm going to do something new and I need structure. Like for me, like part of my treatment was I need structure routine. So once a week, I'm going to write an article for LinkedIn. Like just like on whatever topic, I'm going to do a search on the most searched topics regarding this age group or regarding this or that or whatever else. And I just kept writing and doing and getting better and better. And I always say I'm a much better speaker than a writer. Like, thank God for editing because I'm much better vocally. So I wanted to work on, like, you know what? I love to read. I have a lot of ideas. I see a lot and I learn a lot from just the families I work with, being out and about, family, friends, kids, and whatnot. So I took those 7 or 8 years of writing and turned it into a book. And it was very fun. It was one of those bucket list items. I found for myself personality-wise, like I like to achieve. Like part of my self-care is feeling like I am accomplishing something.
Okay.
So I love even if it's accomplishing, I met somebody new and I cool, I met this new relationship. Like I accomplished that. I wrote this book and cool. Like it wasn't even about sales, money, whatever. It was, like I always want to do this. And I think it's pretty cool to have something out there that, I believe in this. Like I put my name on this. Like all these things I wrote, like I buy it. Like it's not just bullshit or stuff I stole from wherever. So it was a very fun process. It's easier now if anyone wants to write or publish anything on their own. It's very easy now compared to the past. So you can self-publish. There's a bunch of companies that help you with it. And I'm thinking of doing more of it and a little bit more specified fields.
Okay.
So I'm kicking around this idea of doing one just on socialization, relationship building, the importance of it. Because especially now, like we were saying earlier with, the speed in which technology is advancing and AI and people becoming more separated and more isolated, I think those skills are going to be truly the ones that set people apart in the future.
Right. Because it's going to diminish so much, right?
Right.
Because of the technology.
You will be the outlier.
It's kind of like finding somebody right now who knows how to write in cursive and do so well, much less manuscript. Yeah. Like that's literally a forgotten skill now.
Right. But if you have it and you're good at it and somebody needs it, you've got the market cornered. Right. So if you're really good with people, I joke with the kids that the teenagers especially, they're not great at school. I'm like, well, what are you good at? Well, I could just talk to her really easily. I bet if because of your relationship with your teacher, if you asked to do some extra credit, you could pick your grade up.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, it makes sense, of course.
Right. And then the teacher, the kids look at, well, I don't want to do, I'm not a kiss ass, but I'm like, not kiss ass. Like, this is would you do this at work? Like, yes. Like, if you screwed up at work, you have good social skills that kind of keep you around. Or if you need to make extra money or whatever else, use that skill. If you don't have it, you're going to have to get good at that. That's life. Like, we live in a social society. No matter what, you as much as you want to say, I could live at home and be alone and work from home and Instacart and blah, blah, blah. The majority of people over time, that's a depressing lifestyle.
Like you said earlier, all these diagnoses, they love isolation. They love that, right?
They do. Yep. And unfortunately, it perpetuates itself. So the longer I avoid those things and the longer I kind of dive deeper into my own mental illness or whatever, the stronger it gets. And the harder it is to get help, to ask for support, and to do the things that are good for you.
Right now, you work you work for a company, and this company has a bunch of psychologists under it.
Yeah.
And then, so how would somebody, if they wanted to see you specifically, somebody watching this podcast, they like your energy, they like what you're saying, you know what, I want to go to Dave Krasky himself.
Yeah.
How do they look you up? Or do you do anything privately, or it's all with that practice?
So I do a lot with the practice. It's a group of us. I think there's 8 or 9 of us now.
Okay.
What's nice with virtual work, so in therapy, and I do a lot of testing, like kids with autism, anxiety, learning disabilities, ADHD, whatnot. You can do a lot virtually, and I'm licensed in Florida. So my caseload went from possibly like a couple million in like Broward to 22 million in the state. So you could find me on our company website, which is Weston Psych Care, PsychCare.com. You could find me also at raisingfutureadults.com. You could email me directly. It's just my name. I give out my email, like I'm cool with it. It's just davidkrasky@gmail.com.
What was it you said, that you're aggressively friendly?
Aggressively friendly.
I fucking
Oh
love
my
that
God.
shit. Aggressively friendly.
I'm the
I
one
love
that
it.
goes to the party, and again, like my wife is with me, and she's like, don't make friends. I'm like, no, it's good. I won't make friends. Within an hour, like, we have people coming over to the house
right
after,
now. Yeah.
and they're gonna stay with us for a week. Like, who the fuck is that? Like, no, it's John and Annette. Like, it's our new friends.
Dave, you've been great, brother. You've given some awesome advice. I mean, I would say, I know there's so much more out there, but for the most part, catching shit when it's young is what's so vital. It's what's so important. You want to try to get it before it becomes something that, I don't want to say that can't be fixed, but it's a lot harder to fix, because you have worked with cases for over 10 years and they still have to deal with the actual diagnosis, right?
I love the idea of, and I tell the kids I work with when they want to know, well, why am I here? I'm going to say, like, it's easier to prevent cancer than to treat it.
There you go. That's it. That's
right?
perfect, right?
Always,
right.
like, there's so many sayings about an ounce of prevention, all of it. It makes sense.
Right.
Our society, our culture is not really set up that way. Think of healthcare. Think of education even. Like, we wait till you fail, then we give you help. We wait till you're really sick, then we're going to come in and help. No. Like, you don't have to do that. And in fact, what I try to sell the parents on a lot of the times too, like, if you do this stuff now, if you do these strategies, these skills, whatever now, you're actually going to save money over the course of time. You're going to save time. You're going to have more good, happy experiences than negative ones. But you're going to have to put your work in the beginning, like a fighter. You train in the beginning, you do all this, whatever. You're going to have the victories and the accolades and all these good things later.
Right.
You have to put in the work.
So with that, because I think you've been very politically correct about it, or maybe I didn't put you on the spot, but I think when I want to speak for you is, parents, you guys got to tighten up.
Sure.
And the same way, I know I said it earlier, I'm not going to be a hypocrite. You can't tell a parent how to parent, especially when you're not a parent, because I'm not. But I can tell you motherfuckers need to tighten up. We all got to tighten up.
Yeah.
And it starts young. Don't be complacent. Don't be lazy. Don't just give them the tablet, because it's the path of least resistance, and because you don't want to hear the kid screaming, or my kid's okay. I don't got to make them play with those other kids. Like, they just gave great advice. Socializing is so important.
Yeah.
Setting parameters and being consistent with it. Like you said earlier, consistency being one of the biggest keys, and having them, actually get out and meet people, giving them restrictions on their technology and how long they can use it and how often. All these things really falls on the parent. You have to be the one to stick to it and like you said, train like a fighter and go through these rough times so that later on you're saving yourself the money, the headaches, and everything else.
That's it. That's it. Yeah. You put in the work in the beginning and it pays off later.
I love it.
Absolutely.
Guys, make sure you show your support. Raising Future Adults, man. It's a great book. It's only been out for a little bit over a year. Go show some love. If you know somebody who'll need it, give it to somebody as a gift. And they can order this off of Amazon anywhere?
Amazon, Barnes & Noble. It's on, I think, a lot of other e-tailers. You could get the ebook version. You could get the print version. Awesome. If you want to go to the website, which is raisingfutureadults.com, I put blog posts about twice a week, like free articles, resources. Yeah, I try to put a bunch out there, just educating.
Of course, we need it.
Especially nowadays, it's very difficult to know what's factual with TikTok and Instagram and stuff, to know what's real. Even AI, like, oh, I saw this professor say whatever. Like, that was not a real professor.
Right.
So I try to get all of my information from very reliable sources, reliable research, good data, and then to put it in a way that's understandable, like for normal people. Like, this is how I talk. Like, I like a lot of these different ideas and topics, but I don't talk like a professor or a statistician.
Which is more relatable, though.
Right.
To me, I like that. That's more effective.
Right, and I tell the parents, like, I was talking one earlier today, you know, we're just talking like, yeah, that's bullshit. Yeah, that is fucking bullshit.
Exactly, like that.
Like,
yes.
That's how we talk. Like, that's typical. Like, that's
Right.
normal. That's real life. That's what works.
That's awesome, brother. And one last thing, the name of your podcast.
So it's called In the Garage with Dave and Andres. We're on Substack, and we also write a lot for that too. We're on Apple Music. We're on Spotify. We've been interviewing people. We record once a week, and it's all related to men's mental health.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Dave, man, I really appreciate you, brother. Thank you for everything you do. It's been a pleasure having you on and getting all this great information. Guys, don't forget to share this podcast with somebody else, man. Hit that thumbs up, and I appreciate all the support. See you guys on the next one. Peace.